She had no army, no political power, no weapons, no allies in high places. She was a Jewish woman in the court of the most powerful empire on earth. And she had one chance, one moment, one decision, one sentence she would have to say out loud. And if she got it wrong, she would die. Modern psychology has a name for what Esther understood about power, and it might be the most precise thing ever written about courage and timing. Welcome to the Hebrew Stories. Today we go back to ancient Persia. Around 480 years before the Common Era, the Persian Empire at its height, stretching from India to Ethiopia. 127 provinces, the greatest power the ancient world had ever seen. At its center, the palace at Susa, a city of extraordinary grandeur. Archaeologists have confirmed its existence. The ruins of Susa stand in modern-day Iran. The throne room where this story unfolds, excavated and studied by historians. The book opens with King Ahasuerus hosting an immense festival at his palace. He demands his wife, Queen Vashti, attend so he can parade her beauty before his guests. Vashti refuses. This is the first act of courage in the Book of Esther, and almost nobody talks about it. Vashti knew what refusal would cost her. She refused anyway. The king is humiliated. His advisors warn him that if word spreads that the queen defied the king, every woman in Persia will start defying her husband. Vashti is banished. A new queen must be found. A search begins across the empire. Young women are brought to the palace, to the harem, to be prepared, assessed, and presented to the king. Among them, a young Jewish woman. Her Hebrew name was Hadassah, but she was known by her Persian name, Esther. Esther was a member of the Jewish community in the exilic period. She was a cousin of Mordecai, who had raised her after her parents died. Mordecai gave her one instruction before she entered the palace: "Tell no one you are Jewish." Esther followed his counsel. She went through the year of preparation required of all the candidates, and when her turn came to appear before the king, he chose her above everyone else. Esther became queen of Persia, from orphan to queen, in a foreign land, speaking a foreign language, living in a foreign palace, and keeping a secret. Then came Haman. King Ahasuerus promoted Haman above all the other princes in Persia. He was given enormous authority, and he expected everyone to bow before him. Everyone did, except Mordecai. Mordecai, Esther's cousin, the man who had raised her, sat at the king's gate and refused to bow. Haman recognized Mordecai's Jewish heritage and sought to destroy not just Mordecai, but all the Jews throughout the entire kingdom. He went to the king. He described the Jews as a people whose customs were different from all others, who did not follow the king's laws. He offered to pay a vast sum of silver into the royal treasury if the king would authorize their destruction. The king gave Haman his signet ring. "Do with them as you see fit." A decree went out across the empire. On a specific date, all Jews were to be killed, their property confiscated, their communities erased. Now here's what makes this story extraordinary, because what happened next changed everything. Mordecai heard the decree. He tore his clothes, put on sackcloth and ashes, and went to the city gate in mourning. He sent a message to Esther. He told her what had happened, and he asked her to go before the king, to plead for her people. Esther sent a message back. Everyone knows the law. Anyone who approaches the king in the inner court without being summoned, man or woman, is put to death, unless the king extends his golden scepter, I have not been summoned in 30 days. Mordecai's response became one of the most famous sentences in the Hebrew Bible. Do not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place. But you and your father's family will perish. And then he asked the question that has echoed across 3,000 years. Who knows? Perhaps you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. For such a time as this. Esther read these words, and then she sent her own message back. Go, gather all the Jews in Susa. Fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days. I and my attendants will fast as well. When this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish. Here is what makes Esther extraordinary. Not that she was brave, not that she was beautiful, not that she was lucky. What makes Esther extraordinary is what she did in the 3 days before she went to the king. She did not rush. Every instinct in a crisis situation pushes toward action. When people are in danger, the psychological pressure to do something, anything, immediately, is almost overwhelming. Esther fasted for 3 days. She asked everyone around her to fast with her. She created space, stillness, preparation. Modern psychology has a name for this. Researchers studying decision-making under high-stakes conditions have found that the worst decisions are almost always made immediately, in the grip of the panic response. The best decisions are made after what researchers call strategic delay. Not hesitation, not avoidance. Deliberate preparation before action. Esther was not paralyzed by fear. She was using it. On the 3rd day, she got dressed. The Hebrew Bible describes this moment with unusual detail. She put on her royal robes. She stood in the inner court. The king was sitting on his throne. He looked up and saw her, and extended the golden scepter. Esther approached and touched the tip of the scepter. The king asked, "What is your request, Queen Esther?" "Even up to half the kingdom, it will be given to you." And here is the second thing that makes Esther extraordinary. She did not ask for what she wanted. Not yet. She invited the king and Haman to a banquet she had prepared. They came. The king asked again, "What is your request?" And again, Esther did not reveal it. "Please come tomorrow to another banquet, and then I will answer." 2 banquets before the request. Researchers studying influence and persuasion have found something consistent across cultures and centuries. Direct confrontation in high-stakes situations almost always fails. Power doesn't respond well to being cornered, but power responds very well to being invited, to feeling honored, to making a request feel like a privilege rather than a demand. Esther was not manipulating the king. She was reading the situation with extraordinary precision. She was choosing her moment the way a surgeon chooses where to make an incision. Now here is what will completely change how you understand this story. Because Esther's approach has a name in modern behavioral science. Researchers call it strategic sequencing. The deliberate structuring of when information is revealed and how it is framed, to maximize the likelihood of the desired response. Esther understood that Haman's power over the king was built on proximity. He was always there, always whispering, always the most present voice. She needed to isolate that dynamic, to create a context where the king's loyalty to her could be activated before Haman's influence could neutralize it. The second banquet worked. Esther stood before the king and Haman, and she said, "If I have found favor with you, O king, grant me my life. This is my petition. And spare my people. This is my request. For we have been sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated." The king's face changed. "Who has done this? Who is he? Where is he?" Esther pointed. "The adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman." Everything unraveled from that moment. Haman was exposed, executed on the very gallows he had built for Mordecai. The Jews were saved, and Esther was celebrated for her courage and her timing. So, what does this ancient story teach us? Most of us will never face genocide. Most of us will never need to approach a king. But almost everyone will face a version of what Esther faced. A moment when something important is at stake. When speaking up will be dangerous. When the wrong timing will make everything worse. When you have information that needs to reach someone with power, and you need to choose your moment carefully. Esther's story is a masterclass in something modern leadership researchers call strategic courage. Not reckless courage, not the courage that charges without thinking, but the courage that prepares, that waits, that chooses the right moment and the right words and the right sequence. There are 3 things Esther demonstrates that are worth studying closely. First, she accepted the reality of her situation before she tried to change it. She did not pretend she was not afraid. She fasted. She acknowledged the weight of what she was about to do. And then she acted. Psychologists call this emotion acknowledgement. The research is consistent. People who acknowledge their fear before a high-stakes moment perform better than those who try to suppress or deny it. Second, she did not act alone. She asked her community to fast with her. She built collective support before she entered the inner court. In modern organizational research, this is called coalition building. People who seek change by themselves almost always fail. People who build a coalition of support before they act succeed at much higher rates. Third, she chose her moment with extraordinary precision. Not the first opportunity, not the most emotionally urgent moment, but the moment when conditions were right. Timing is not cowardice. Strategic timing is one of the most underrated forms of intelligence there is. The question Mordecai asked her is worth sitting with. Perhaps you have come to your position for such a time as this. Every one of us has moments like this. Moments when our specific position, our specific access, our specific knowledge, our specific relationships puts us in a place where we can do something that no one else can do. The question is whether we recognize those moments when they arrive, and whether we choose to act. 2,500 years ago, a Jewish orphan in a Persian palace made one of the most consequential decisions in the history of her people. She could have stayed silent. The law gave her every reason to. The risk was real. The danger was real. She chose to act, not impulsively, not immediately, but deliberately, carefully, with extraordinary precision. And here is the remarkable thing about the book of Esther. God is never mentioned in it, not once. The book of Esther is the only book in the Hebrew Bible that does not contain the name of God. No miracles, no divine intervention, no burning bush, no parted sea, just a woman, a moment, a choice. The rabbis have debated for centuries why God's name is absent from this book. Many have concluded that its absence is the point. Sometimes God works through people who show up, who prepare carefully, who choose their moment, who speak when speaking is dangerous. And if they perish, they perish. But they go. The question this story leaves you with is the one Mordecai asked. Perhaps you have come to where you are for such a time as this. What is your such a time? And what are you waiting for? Thank you for watching the Hebrew Stories. If this moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Next time, we tell the story of a man who ran from his purpose and what it took to bring him back. See you then.